You want me to start off like crazy, like? Hey guys, welcome to Cinema Brawls. Today we're going to be doing a random matchup of, I believe we pulled Batman and John Wick last time. This is Matt, that is Daniel, and I am Fabio Barnes. Let's get it started. So let me give you a few facts about the 1989 Batman. It's starring Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson as the Joker, created by Tim Burton.
What are you? I'm Batman.
It's a really good Batman movie, up until the actual Batman movies came out.
So John Wick came out in 2014, was directed by someone whose name I can't pronounce, and stars Keanu Reeves.
And nobody else.
In all seriousness, there's a lot of great actors in it, but it's really Keanu Reeves' show.
It's not what you did, son, that angers me so. It's who you did it to.
Who? Nobody?
That nobody is John Wick.
Shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Remarks, get set, brawl. What's your first impressions? Batman.
Well,
Wait.
Since Matt's so eager to start, why don't you?
I'm voting for Batman simply just because it was one of the best Batman movies to have come out. Obviously, the Christopher Nolan ones are really good, and I'm very excited for what DC has planned for the future. But up to that point, that movie, I think, revolutionized Batman movies and superhero movies in general. Before that, what did we have? I think the first two, Christopher Reeve's Superman, and some really bad Marvel attempts with the Avengers.
I want you to remember something when you get out of jail, pal. The old people around here are my friends. And if I ever hear they have problems again, I'm coming after you.
I think, that Batman is definitely unique in its own way. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun Batman
For
to
sure.
watch.
Yeah, so I think this Batman movie in particular, the 1989 one, was one of the better Batman movies. Even with the Christopher Nolan ones, we can still look back at this one and pick out the good parts. Jack Nicholson was very iconic as the Joker. Michael Keaton did a great job as the Batman himself. Whereas with John Wick, not to be negative, I just feel like there have been better action movies before and have been better ones since.
I love the Tim Burton Batman. I think that it did a great job. Really, the only Batman before that was Adam West, which was awesome.
Batman? Yes, Mr. Wayne. Have you heard Mr. Freeze's scurrilous demands? Just briefly. If Robin and I act as go-betweens, are you prepared to make the telecast at midnight and pay the ransom, Mr. Wayne? I have no choice, Batman. Then may I suggest you tape the broadcast from the commissioner's office an hour earlier?
I mean, look at all the movies that were influenced by Batman.
Okay, so you're also voting for Batman.
But, this is a big but, I think John Wick is quite possibly one of the greatest action movies of all time. It revolutionized how action movies were made. It did such a great job with the genre. And so it took these people that were stuntmen, very action-oriented people, to be like, all right, guys, sit down, hold my beer, let me show you how I do it. I feel like that's what makes John Wick great, I'm voting for John Wick.
I'm voting for Batman.
Well, I am still very on the fence because I like both movies, and let me tell you why. Batman, like I said, it was a really fun take on Batman, and I am a huge Batman fan altogether. He's my favorite superhero. Jack Nicholson did a good job as the Joker. I mean, Tim Burton is a weird freaking dude. When you put that kind of stuff into Gotham, it looks really good. Like I said, it just gave it that kind of overall feel of wow. It's lighthearted, but it's also dark at the same time. So that was a really great movie. John Wick was a good movie. And the reason why I like John Wick is because it is action-packed. It gives you a different take on it for sure. Like, this guy is literally unstoppable. He's just like the most hardcore guy that you've ever seen in your life, and you can tell just by the way the guys are talking about him. I absolutely love the phone call the big bad mafia dude's having with his little lack. He's like, "Did you punch my son?" "Yeah." "Can I ask why?" "He stole John Wick's car." "Oh." Just hangs up on the guy.
Like, oh crap. Okay.
And then he goes after the son, like,
Right.
Why did you do this?
Like, that's the best way you could possibly set up a character to just be a complete bad A.
And that's definitely what that is. And then John Wick, proves that as he goes throughout the movie. And so I think it's a good movie as far as just pure action goes. Both good movies, but again, I'm on the fence on them.
So really, you should be in this spot. Shall we deliberate? Let's start with the story, where I think Batman has the biggest edge over John Wick. I do like how John Wick, I like how they set him up, and I like how they pretty much take away everything he loves. And I do like that, but as soon as he gets off the ground and starts beating people up again, it just kind of seems to me like every other action movie. Go here, punch this guy. Go here, punch this guy. Shoot, shoot, bang, bang, gun, gun. There's nothing wrong with that, especially with that genre. I just feel like compared to Batman, it really lacks in the story. Watching Batman again, I really like how it was set up. Kind of like you were saying earlier, Tim Burton sets up Gotham in just the best way that Tim Burton can.
It was the perfect movie for Tim Burton to just bust onto the scene with.
Something I feel like a lot of Batman movies recently, especially with Christopher Nolan's trilogy and this one, is they kind of make Gotham its own character. The city is its own entity in a way. Mm-hmm. And I like how Tim Burton set up that scene and just made it come to life. I like how it didn't start with the same old Batman origin story that some of the ones recently are doing. It set him up as he's already been in the game for a while. We don't even see Batman for the first few minutes of the movie. He's just like being passed around like a ghost story. I don't know. I just like how he was already established, how they set it up, and then obviously the Joker in any iteration is awesome.
I think it's really a great movie. And it did so well. It changed comic book movies. Now comic book movies were a viable source of income.
It wasn't just the campy, look at the guy running around in tights thing. I think points out of 10 with story, I would honestly give it maybe a 7 for Batman.
Yeah, and I would put the story, I would just put it above that of John Wick, just because I feel like there was more to it. John Wick, I mean, yeah, I relate to the character and feel for him, he's lost everything. But then he goes on this murder spree, and I'm like, don't think I would react like that. And so it becomes a little harder to relate to him, but it is fun to watch.
I think Tim Burton's Batman has a great story, and I do think that it has a better story overall, just in terms of story structure and screenplay itself, a lot more interesting than John Wick's. But that's one of the reasons why I like John Wick. It crystallizes everything that's awesome about action movies. But I will give Batman the benefit of having the better story, I think.
So points out of 10 on Batman.
I would give it probably a 5.
5?
I'm willing to give it a 6.
6? Okay. I'm sticking with my 7.
Okay.
For John Wick's story, I'd probably give it a 4, just barely.
I was going to say 4. I agree 4.
Yeah, 4. So moving on to characters, I guess again with Batman, you get a lot of fun characters in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, Batman as a concept is just really cool anyway. Just some rich guy going around beating the snot out of some crazy freaking criminals.
Literally.
Including
crazy.
A clown. I think people are afraid of clowns just because the Joker exists.
I think the characters are more memorable in Batman, obviously because they have persisted this long. They've seen so many iterations. I feel like if it weren't for the second chapter of John Wick, I feel like John Wick probably would have already fallen by the wayside. I just feel like the characters have persisted longer. They've done better over time. And we just keep getting new and different iterations.
Yeah, with Batman, definitely. All of the characters are so much more memorable because, again, it's a Tim Burton movie. They're supposed to be memorable. You have all these great, fun characters that, oh, wow, I remember their names. I only remember John Wick from John Wick.
Right, but that's all you need to remember.
That is
from
all
John
you need
Wick.
to remember.
Because
the rest is just body count.
I mean, right. Let's not discredit John Wick on that because as a character, he is intense, and that's what you want for that action movie. That's why that was such a good movie, is because you look at that guy and you say, "Holy crap!
Holy cow!" Yeah.
And you relate to him when they kill his dog and steal his car.
Oh yeah.
Just like, this guy's wife just died. Come on, guys.
Great character building. There's
Right.
not as much character development, but there's a lot of character building.
Yeah.
There's great character
fair.
moments. The places that he goes to have a lot of character.
Right.
All the world building, like going to the Continental Hotel, getting that phone call from the mafia guy.
Let us not resort to our baser instincts and handle this like civilized men to move on.
What do you say?
Enough.
Even though he's literally said
He
nothing.
said nothing.
I will give it to you that the character building was a lot better in John Wick, because you go into this Batman movie or any Batman movie nowadays, and they kind of just expect you to know who Batman is, what he represents.
Batman's a cultural icon, and he had been even at the Tim Burton
at that
one.
point, yeah.
Right. I mean, but then again, there's the rest of the characters in that movie. Like we said, we don't really need them, but I do feel like the villains were not even a threat, really. Especially the kid. Kid was a punk, and you're like, yeah, this guy's gonna get taken out by John Wick quick. And he does when he's like at the end when he's groveling, and the guy, he doesn't even let him finish a sentence. He just shoots.
And there's Willem Dafoe. We haven't even talked about Willem Dafoe.
Oh, I forgot Willem Dafoe was in that movie.
Dude, freaking Willem Dafoe,
Okay.
man.
Props to William Dafoe. I personally give Batman a 7, and I will give John Wick a 5.
I would switch those. I'd give John Wick a 7 and Batman a 5.
I was going to give Batman probably a 6, just because, like I said, we have to go into the movie already knowing who these characters are. And even though they did a good job, there have been better iterations of these characters since. So I was going to give Batman a 6, and then John Wick a 4, since that we all had. But
Chopping me off at the news guy. Rewatchability.
I feel like neither of them are really that. Like, you don't go in at the end of the day and like, I gotta see Batman or I gotta see John Wick right now. It's not something I wouldn't really prefer to see either one of them.
Dude, I
A week
have
in a row.
rewatched so many parts of John Wick. I've watched that movie at least 12 times, and then like just on YouTube watched the different fight scenes and stuff like that. Like, I'm not kidding. If you want to learn how to direct or do action scenes, that is a masterclass. I have seen Batman several times, but I think that John Wick overall, just because it's a little bit simpler, easier to get into, I think John Wick's more rewatchable.
I would kind of agree with that. I think that it's got a simplicity to it that makes it more rewatchable. Batman gives you a little more to think about, but it's also not like something every day you're like, oh, we got to rewatch Batman.
Right.
I
It's
mean-
like, it's not a very deep story. You
Right.
see it and you get the information that it's the movie's trying to convey.
Right.
For sure. There have been worse Batmans. That's for
There
sure.
have.
I do like watching, if for nothing more than just to see Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton play off each other.
I would honestly give 5s across the board for both movies. Like I said, they're not really movies I come home at the end of the day and think, man, I gotta watch this right now.
I'll give a 4 to Batman, but 5 to John Wick. Okay.
I would give an 8 to John Wick and a 4 to Batman.
And so for our last category, merits in genre, and we've kind of touched this throughout our other discussions with the other categories. My blanket statement with this, I think obviously there have been better Batman movies, better superhero movies in general than this Batman, but I feel like this still had its defining moment in the genre. People
Right.
still refer back to this one
For sure.
for their movies now. Whereas John Wick, it was the best action movie of that year, I still think there were better ones that came out before it, like The Raid, for example. I still think there are better action movies before John Wick, better ones since.
So with merits and genre, I would give points to John Wick because it did do a good action movie for its time. I will give it a 6. But for Batman, at the time, it was a really good Batman movie. And its genre, it was a really good superhero movie overall. So I'm going to give Batman also a 6.
6. I was going to say the same thing, but Batman has the 6, and I would give John Wick a 5.
I like John Wick better, but Batman definitely did more for cinema and for film as a whole. It was so influential, and I think that Batman was probably an 8 and John Wick a 6.
It was close. But averaged together, John Wick gets an average score of 5 out of 10. Batman gets an average score of 6 out of 10, which leaves Batman 1989 on the winner.
I'm okay with that. I think that was a good
I
choice.
feel good.
Yeah.
I feel good.
Good discussion, good discussion. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. It's time to decide the matchup for the next video. Cinema Ball! Jake, what do we got?
Got Mission Impossible 4.
Ghost
Ghost Protocol.
Yeah, that's Ghost Protocol.
Sweet. Daniel, what's it up against?
Crazy Stupid Love.
Cool.
All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Tune in next time to watch Crazy Stupid Love versus